Rahim, Assalamu alaikum, Jiayanu, Pukhairagale, Nihao, Chunashumbe, Washmale, Ohio Gozaimas, Guten Morgen, Ola, Bojo, previous, Kaifahal, Halishuma Chatore, Ahlan Masaran Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Suavia, Balikare, Hoj Gal, Dinayo, Sayo, Kuyamora, and thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You're certainly watching World this morning, alongside my very well-learned colleague, who happens to be Miss Haja Satli, and I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well, and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Haja, how are you doing today?
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for introducing me, Shahzad. So, Shahzad, you have the opportunity to visit abroad, right?
Yep,
and in a lot of different countries, alhamdulillah,
Yes,
right? And we've seen that there are a lot of expat Pakistani communities, especially in very influential Western capitals, right there, right? And I mean, they're contributing towards their culture, and they're also contributing towards the Pakistani culture, and especially when it comes to remittances, because Pakistan's GDP, their contribution of the remittances to the Pakistani GDP is really great.
Billions of dollars.
Yes.
Yes.
And not just the remittances, I mean the way the cross-culture of ideas that is going on, it's really amazing that how Pakistani community is contributing not just to the host countries but to the country of their origin, right? So in order to have a more encapsulating discussion on that, an enlightening discussion on that, and what sort of problems they face and what sort of identity changes do they go when they're adjusting to their way of the life and also incorporating our values, I think we have some wonderful, marvelous guests, right? So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Rashid Hussain Saab, who happens to be Deputy Mayor of Glasgow City. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to us.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you very much, sir, for joining us, because, you know, I never had this idea that even if I'm going to be in Glasgow, I will actually get to see you. But today, I think I'm very lucky. In fact, our team is lucky that we are hosting you over here in Pakistan. So thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here.
Pleasure to be here.
Likewise. And alongside him, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by somebody who happens to be the director for CPEC and happens to be Dr. Talat Shabir Sahab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me over.
Thank you very much for joining us, and it's wonderful to have you. So for all our audiences in 46 different countries, whether you're watching us in Pakistan or outside Pakistan, today we are actually going to speak about, you know, the image building of the Pakistani diaspora, which actually resides in any country other than Pakistan. I think that's what the concept is. So first thing, I think I'm going to refer to the Mayor Sahab over here as well, Deputy Mayor Sahab. So sir, I think first things first, you know, when we speak about our diaspora, how do we realize that, you know, that's the kind of image building we really need to do for them, and what are those areas which we really need to work on, you know, as a political figure, as somebody who actually works within the civil society and amongst them?
Okay. First of all, assalamu alaikum everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here again. Let me just clarify something.
Sure, sure.
I'm an elected member of Glasgow City Council.
Yes.
I am my official in Scotland. The concept of a mayor is a Lord Provost, being the biggest city in Glasgow, in Scotland, sorry. And I am a Bailey, so Deputy Mayor you're calling me, but my official title is Bailey.
Bailey.
And it's a pleasure serving the whole of my community, and that includes Musliman. You talk about, we were having a discussion earlier on about being a Muslim in Glasgow. My last speech within the city chambers in Glasgow, I actually read out the kalma in Arabic, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So being in a non-Muslim country, to be able to do that gives you the flexibility.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of democracy, Chief.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So in addition to, you know, kind of coming back to my question over here, that is that, you know, since you work with the civil society, you know, you have a political background,
yes,
alhamdulillah. How do you make sure that these are the requirements of the people? Because you know, your working conditions over there will actually kind of expect you to be the voice of each and every individual within your society.
No, and that's the tough bit.
Yeah.
I love Pakistan. I first came to Pakistan when I was 11 years old.
Yep.
I was sent on a plane alone. Remember that? Because in those days we could do that.
Yeah.
So it was a PIA flight. I was flown to Pakistan with my cousin. We both came to Pakistan 11 years of age. That's when I first experienced Pakistan. So hence in my daily life, that's what I love to do, promote Pakistan.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So moving on to Talat Sahab, we've seen that the expat communities, of course, Shahzad, is very influential in Western capitals. So they don't just send back the remittances, they're also the potential brokers of the diplomatic relations. And that is why the host countries, or the countries of the origins, want to maintain a robust relations with them. How can that help us in the image building of Pakistan?
Right. I think there is a huge diaspora across the world. More than 9 million people, Pakistanis, live in the entire world, and around 1.5 million they live in UK. So over the years they have been able to make their mark on various on societies, in civil society, in community service, in politics. So I think that puts all Pakistanis living abroad at an advantageous position to build a positive image of Pakistan. So when you travel in the Western world, you find that people are actually divorced from some ground realities of Pakistan. So as I call it, there's a perception of Pakistan and there's a reality. Sometimes people coming from abroad, not the Muslim Pakistanis, but the foreigners coming here, they tell us that it's hugely different from what we hear in the West. So that is where I think Pakistani community, Pakistani diaspora comes in, where they can play very positive role in. For example, he's an effective politician in Glasgow, and he is Pakistani. He loves Pakistan. So I think there can't be any better ambassador than Rashid to project Pakistan's image.
Exactly. And in addition to that, there's one more thing, and that is that, obviously, as the Pakistani diaspora or as a Pakistani expat, if you live in any other country, how is it that, that you kind of start to share your political inclinations, and that too in a state where it does not really even matter? Do you think that that's a good way for Pakistani diaspora to build image of their country wherever they reside, or do you think that it shouldn't really be happening on the streets of a place where it does not really matter?
I think it was a little more than what was required. Probably, I think we must keep Pakistan first everywhere, wherever we go.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and we should not take our, this is not a problem, this political instability or political problems that we face. It's in the entire world.
True.
So nobody takes their problems to the entire world and tell people, look back in our country. I think this is we need to be more cautious and careful with regards to.
Imagine somebody coming over here, from UK and be like, we're not really very happy with the king too. But I think that's something which is so irrelevant. I mean, let's talk about our country. Let's talk about our countrymen, the people of our country. You wanted to add something?
Yeah. Within Glasgow City Council, we've actually done a twinning with Lahore. So Lahore is a twin city with Glasgow.
Okay.
So the whole reason for that is to share best practice and knowledge.
Exactly.
And Rescue 1122, they've been to Glasgow. They've trained with our fire service.
Wow.
I think 10 motorcycles were donated to them in Lahore.
Wow.
And I think Shahbaz Sharif then matched that as well. So there's a lot of good work going on. And as Dr. Talbot mentioned there, it's all about the perception.
True.
Right.
So obviously different generations will have different perceptions. Now I think your challenge is your third generation of youngsters growing up in that country. How do you engage them positively with Pakistan is really the next challenge.
So how do you think that the diaspora can actually do that while staying over there, because they are the brand ambassadors for the country or the countrymen over here?
I'm not going to be political here.
Yeah. Thank you. If it's not that hard.
No, I know. But I think the political instability at the moment doesn't help.
Okay.
Because a lot of people feel unsafe. And it may not be the case, but it's their perception.
Yeah.
And it's all about giving them a stable country, a stable platform to make that difference.
Exactly. Thank you for that.
So there are a lot of epithets like host countries and the guest culture, or the guest countries, guest workers. But then again, they can't by any stretch of imagination match our emotional connection with Mehman Nawaz and Mezban concept, right?
Yeah.
How does that shape the migrant identity there, especially for the newbies who are going from Pakistan and going abroad living there?
There are lots of activities which go on. There's mashallah, lots of communities and they're very, remember, being Pakistani isn't just our family bonds, which obviously exist, but also our religion as well. So Islamically is very strong. So I think the newbies now are more knowledgeable, more engaged.
Right.
So I think once that stability of a government and economic is there, that will resolve.
Exactly.
But moving on to you, I'm sorry I'm cutting you to that. We've seen that migrants, they're contributing towards Pakistan in terms of remittances, right? And there's a very massive contribution of theirs. So how can they, apart from the monetary contribution, contribute to the Pakistan's image building?
First of all, this is a very important point. I think we must highlight the three things that contribute to economy are: one is export,
Right.
second is FDI, and third is remittance.
Right.
This remittance is very important component of economy of any country. So we were lucky to have diaspora who was contributing a lot, and particularly in previous government also they contributed a lot towards remittances, and it's a good sign. You see, when I say I visited Glasgow a couple of times. So when you go there and you interact with community, you find that people have a lot of respect for those people working for them. For example, they have built an Islamic community center,
Right.
and it's a huge, and it's very liberal, open, and
Right.
moderate kind of Islamic center. They practice Islam. They talk to each other. And in fact, first of all, we have to, we have two problems. For example, Muslim identity is a problem in the West.
Yes.
So the Muslims, if they reflect a kind of moderation and a modernization in their outlook, that actually contributes a lot to first having them have views about Islam, little moderate. Second is Pakistan, because Pakistan is also portrayed as a country which is everything, securitization and terrorism,
Right.
and extremism.
Yeah.
So I think the community, when I was in Glasgow, I find everybody Islamic. They will go to mosque, they would do rituals, but still they would be continuing to contribute in that society and give a kind of moderate image.
And I think there is a lot of interesting research or the portrayal of Pakistan coming beyond the boundaries of terrorism and securitization. For example, how Humayun Saeed's character has been portrayed in The Crown, right?
Yes.
And of course, in the Miss Marvel series, you've seen a lot of Pakistanis that are representing Pakistan. So I'm really glad this sort of conversation is happening.
Exactly, and obviously, because when we speak about our soft representation, I think these are the mediums which everybody kind of uses and utilizes, and we are glad.
Right.
And I think there needs to be a time now that we really need to kind of stop talking about all of that, because there was a hard phase. It was difficult for us. A lot of people suffered. A lot of lives were being lost. But Alhamdulillah, I think it's been more than 5-6 years that we are back on track. We speak about international cricket opening up its doors for Pakistan, and teams coming down over here. Not just that, we have a lot of visitors, vloggers, YouTubers. But since you happen to be the director for CPAC as well, there's one more thing, and that is that so with CPAC we have seen a lot of Chinese people come into Pakistan. We love them. Pakistan Dosti Wongswai. So they have done quite a lot in their community building, and then what kind of activities do they involve themselves into making sure that they are going to reflect the right image of the diaspora which still lives in China?
I will just mention one thing about Pakistan-China relation. The people-to-people contact, our cultural ties, are not as we expect from this relationship, and particularly when we have a very comprehensive Pakistan-China relations. There are problems to Pakistanis living in China, and there are problems Chinese living in too. Wherever I go, people ask me if the Chinese community, they are easy to adjust to. So, or there is a kind of a propaganda that, look, they are coming and they'll have a cultural influence on Pakistan. I don't buy that.
Even I don't.
Yeah. We put on tie, we put on suit. This is that does not have to do anything with my identity as a Muslim.
True.
So any culture, for example, the first foreign food that I had listened to was Chinese rice, Chinese soup.
True.
So that
Chinese salt.
Yeah. So I think culture makes you should have strong values. And nothing should affect them. Nothing should. If we have been able to develop strong values, I don't think so. Chinese culture will influence negatively.
Exactly. That's wonderfully wrapped as well. And just very quickly, sir, coming on to you, that is moving ahead in life, inshallah. How do you plan to kind of promote the image of Pakistanis back home?
I think Pakistan getting to the Cricket Cup or the T20 final in
It's
itself.
supported, by the way.
In the village, I guess it was everybody.
Were you supporting England or not?
No comment. Pakistan, of course. Pakistan.
All right.
The winners are.
Well, that's wonderful. But thank you very much for joining us. So wonderful
Thank
to be in conversation with you. Thank you very much, Dr. Shah, for joining us. Wonderful to be in conversation with you too. And ladies and gentlemen, we people, whenever we travel all over the world, we are the ambassadors of our countries. And the way we behave with people, the way we sit down with them, the way we talk, the way we reflect our values is something that they're going to take a perception of your country and your fellow, people who live with you within this country. So I think every time, every individual who's going to go outside, please make sure that you behave the way your parents have taught you. Please make sure that you do not take decisions by your own head. Just be the way our values are. And inshallah, I think that image building will actually kind of help and reflect quite a lot.
So with that, we're going on a short break. So please stay tuned. Welcome back, and Shehzad, as you know, there is a COP27 conference going on in the Sharm el-Sheikh, and Pakistan's pavilion is the most engaging because of the Project Living Index, which is about restoring the ecological health. So to talk more about that and the food insecurity that is being caused because of the recent floods, we have a wonderful guest in the studio, and without any further ado, I would like to introduce Ms. Florence Roll, who happens to be FAO representative in Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our show.
Assalamu alaikum.
Right. So, Ms. Florence, Living Index is the project there, and we've seen that there are recent floods going on in Pakistan and how they've caused insecurity there. What is the assessment of the FAO?
Thank you very much. So, what we need to looking at the floods for the agriculture sector, the first thing to look at is the farmers and the small, the vulnerable farmers, so the small farmers. What were the challenges that they faced? The first one was their crop was inundated, and it's the kharif crop, and the kharif crop is a cash crop. So basically, at the end of the crop, no cash. Second thing was there was water still. So the second challenge is, so what do I do for my next season, the Rabi season? And so we had the challenge of this water everywhere. Is the water receding so that we can start the Rabi season? Fortunately, when you look around these days, there are still pockets of water, but mostly the water has receded. So the big issue for the farmer today is, I don't have cash. How do I buy my seeds? How do I buy my fertilizers? So, and the small farmers are already in debt. So how do I do that? So to cope with that, FAO, thanks to, many donors, because we need resources to do a project in the field. So we had support from the USAID, we had support from the EU, from the humanitarian side of the EU, Japan, UN Fund, etc., which helped us to put in place a response to the flood, an immediate response to the flood. So what are we doing, you're going to ask me. So what we are doing is, at the moment, distributing seed and fertilizer for these small, vulnerable farmers so that they can cope. And with that package, they can feed at least their family for 1 year. You're going to tell me not now because, you need to harvest. So what is important is that the UN family as well is bringing that gap in terms of food assistance between now and the production of the Rabi.
Exactly. And in addition to that, I would certainly want to kind of ask you about food security as well, because when we talk about Food and Agriculture Organization, I think with the current flood situation, obviously there's going to be a lot of food insecurity in the coming days. So, this Rabi packages, I'm glad that you've been distributing it amongst all the provinces, not just one. I think that's something which we really need to appreciate, so thank you very much for that. But what do you assess for now? How do you think that people really need to come out of whatever the given circumstances are in terms of food insecurity?
So the UN, FAO and the UN has been